Welcome to Real Speaks to Real. It is Linnea here.
And my name is Pastor Keith. You could just call me PK. And we're so excited to have you guys with us today for our first podcast. Honey?
Yeah, so we wanted to start a podcast to be able to just have open dialogue with people. I feel like I learned something from everybody's story. Everybody has a unique story, and there's something that we can all pull from it. And so we just wanted to be able to have authentic conversations with people about what they've learned in their lives, what they might be going through. And I'm excited to get started today with Miss Carmela Wallace. Miss Wallace is the mother of Jarad Higgins, known to the masses as Juice Wrld. She has been a part of our lives since around 2011.
Yep.
I think is when we met.
Yep.
And we met because Jarad came to Homewood Christian Academy, where I was a teacher at that point, and joined my 8th grade homeroom class. And he came in as a middle school student and knew exactly who he was. So we just want to get to talk a little bit. I want to introduce the world to Jarad, because I think they know Juice Wrld, but I would like to introduce the world to Jarad. And so if we can just maybe start a little bit by talking about what was he like as a younger kid.
So Jarad was happy. He was happy, and always really kind to people. He was always a people person. He was the type of kid who left the room and people would say, "Who is that?" Or "Who is that kid?" He just always had a way of leaving a lasting impression on people. So he was pleasant, and he was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I would have to say, in my experience, even meeting him, and like I said, he was a middle school student when we met. Still to this day, out of all the students who I've taught, and I've been in education for now more than 16 years, he is hands down one of the most respectful students I've ever had. So, I mean, even to go along with his kindness and his genuine heart, he just was so respectful. And that, in middle school, you know that is not a common thing.
Yeah.
And so I know that has a lot to do with how you raised him and the things that you thought were important in his upbringing.
Absolutely. Well, he grew up in the church, so he was raised with those types of principles. So it was instilled in him early, and he was easy. I mean, that was just him. You know, he was just nice.
Yeah.
He was just that. God made him that way. He was just nice and pleasant, and just always loved people. So
I remember the first time when he went with us to Ascension Convention. I believe it was his 8th grade year. But I just remember, like, even on our way up there, just how respectful he. Like, I have my kids, we have our students that we always got to yell at and scream at. But he was just always so respectful, and sometimes I wouldn't even know he's there because he was just so good and so polite. So you did a great job raising him. And we don't say that too often.
Yeah, and that's another big part of Jarad's story, which I think kind of goes unnoticed, is your relationship with him, because that tight-knit relationship that you guys had was evident from day one. I mean, I meet a lot of parents and students. I talked with a lot of parents, but Jarad didn't play when it came time to his mom. And you didn't play when it came time to Jarad either, as most moms don't. But the fact that you all had, it wasn't just a close relationship. It was, you had a respect for him as he was in that moment, not just a love for your child. Can you talk a little bit about how you guys were able to form that bond?
He came out the womb that way. And a funny story, and this sounds kind of crazy, but you know God, and you know all things are possible. So he had to be about 2 weeks old, and I'm holding him and feeding him, and when I get done, he just looked at me like, "Hey!" He gave me that look, like, "Hey!" And then we were just close. But one thing in raising him and correcting behavior, I always let him know that he was better than the behavior that he was demonstrating. So I would say, you're better than that. So I would correct him with that. So it was the correction with love.
Yeah.
And I think that made a difference. You know, I think that made him comfortable with me and made him comfortable talking to me about stuff. And I'm not naive. I know he didn't tell me everything, but he told me a lot. Right. You know, and he felt comfortable with me. Yeah,
and you helped him see a really great image of himself from early on. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing that really struck me about Jarad is he knew who he was from day one. He wasn't that kid who would come in and like try and fit in or like test things out and say, oh, maybe I like this or that. He knew, like, well, he came in our school, our small school, and our small classroom mainly of African American students. He came in and he's like, I'm a skater. I like to skate. Yes. I like my skateboard. That's what and none of the other kids in my class had anything to do with skateboarding, but he was like, this is what I like to do. And then by the next month, everybody was talking about skateboard. Yeah. Like, that's just who he was.
Yeah, he was authentic and different. And I raised my sons. I have an older son too, and I raised him to be that way. Yeah. Just be yourself, because I was that way. I was always different. I never wanted to be like everyone else, and both my sons are the same way. Yeah, because it's just be who God made you to be. Yeah, so it's just a matter of being comfortable in your skin. Right. Yeah, and Jarad was very confident. He was very comfortable with who he was. Yeah, and he wasn't afraid of who he was, which was great, or to show who he was.
Yeah, even as a young man growing up, he wasn't afraid to show his loving and caring side, which was awesome. Mm-hmm.
And even towards me. Yeah. Like even when he went to high school, he was in HF marching band, and I remember going to watch him perform, and then after halftime, they would leave out, and I would be in the area waiting on him to walk by, and he would kiss me and hug me. Yeah. He's like, I don't care. Yeah, he didn't care. I love my mom. He was never ashamed to say he loved his mom or show that he loved his mom. Yeah. It was just special.
But you know what's funny? It's funny, like with you saying that, but the way you raised him, you gave him enough confidence to know that it's okay not only to be yourself, but to show it to the world.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
So that's a credit to you. And the way you raised them. That goes all back to you.
Well, I have to give credit to God. Because, really it was a direction of the Lord. Being a single mom, I had to pray a lot. And Jarad was a handful. Jarad he had a lot of personality, and it was a lot to him. Yeah. So I had to stay prayerful about direction on how to deal with him. Yeah. So it was a lot of work. Jarad was a lot of work.
Yeah, even, and I'm just keep going back to like my time with him in the classroom. He wasn't the one who wanted to sit and do his homework all the time. And I had him for English. He wasn't sitting there writing papers for me. And Miss Wallace and I would communicate, and Jarad would have that paper done. But he knew. It was almost like he was like, Mrs. A, I don't really need this. I know what I'm going to do. Yes. He was like, he's like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and do what I have to do and get my degrees and graduate and whatever. But he knew from like day one that, what God had called him to.
Yeah. And I want to piggyback off of that because I was watching an interview when he was being interviewed and he made a comment, and when he made that comment, to me, growing up in church, I kind of felt like he got that from you. Okay. From how you raised him. But he said it's no accident that I got to where I got to because I spoke it into existence. And when he said that, I said to myself, that's something his mother instilled in him, because you speak things, and even being a theology student for myself, we've learned that like your mouth is like a hand, and you could create things, and you could tear things down. So you got to be careful what you say. But when he said that, I thought about you automatically.
Oh yeah, because again, being a single mom, sometimes we're hard, and the only thing I had was faith. That was it. Yeah. So he saw me and my faith and me walking according to what God is saying. He saw me depending on the Lord for a move, for things. So I think that's just something he got. And then, going to church, he knew about faith and believing God and speaking. He knew about the power of words, so I think that's where that came from. Yeah.
And how I know, like, with him going to high school and then graduating high school and then coming to you saying, Mom, this is what I want to do. Mm-hmm. What went into that for you? What was that process like?
So it's funny. So our family, you go to college. All the boys go to college. That's just what we were just taught that you get ahead by getting an education. You have something to fall back on. So he was the only kid. My mom has 5 grandsons. He's the only one that didn't go to college and didn't graduate from college. But I remember senior year just going to different open houses. Now, I knew he had to go to a different kind of school. Mm-hmm. And I figured once he went to college, because of the freedom of college, he would like it better. Because he liked learning. He just didn't like the work part of it.
Yeah, sure.
So, but I lost my train of thought.
No worries. Yeah, no, you're talking about him deciding to...
Okay, got it. So we went to one school, and then he just wasn't feeling it.
Yeah.
And then we went to Columbia. I'm thinking, Columbia, that's it. You know, that'd be perfect for him.
Right.
So my son actually is much older than Jarad. Okay. They're like 16-year difference between the two. So he and I were there with Jarad at Columbia House, their open house. Jarad was not interested.
Oh, wow.
He was not impressed. Yeah. He's like, whatever.
Yeah, right.
And my son and I like, yeah. And Jarad was like, okay.
Yeah.
He's more
right. Yeah.
It just wasn't him. But what really made me what made me look at it differently, I saw a performance he did at one of his friends' birthday parties. Mm. And I saw the passion of him on stage performing, and I never seen him passionate like that before. Yeah. I had to. I felt like it was my obligation to give him a year and let him do something. But he had conditions with that. He had to work.
Yeah.
And then when he graduated, I told him the difference between a dream and reality is the work, his goals. So he had to have a plan. He couldn't just say, I'm going to take a year off.
Right.
Yeah. And it's scary because, a lot of African American young men feel like they don't have a lot of options, so they want to be a rapper, a ball player, and I just was so against that.
Yeah,
I was like, no, you have options, you don't have to.
Right.
But you can't take away what's in him.
Yeah.
And watching him perform. Yeah. And watching his energy, and it's like, I could not make him go to school.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't him, and it was just a year. I'm like, it's just a year.
Yeah. It's not the end of the world.
A big deal.
Right.
And I would not have forgiven myself. I didn't want that on me, where I didn't give him an opportunity to at least try.
Right.
Because we tell our children, try and do this. True. So that's the test.
Yeah.
When it's something that you don't necessarily want for them.
That is so spot on, because we tell them you can be anything you want to be, and it's then once they grow up and they graduate from high school and they're making these different things, you're like, maybe not that.
So I had to. I felt like, as his parent, I had to give him that opportunity to do it, and I didn't bother him. I didn't.
Wow.
I gave him. I'm like, I'm not going to talk about school. I'm going to give him an opportunity.
But that's a lot of, faith and trust you had in him, and I know you were praying.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's scary because it's a scary industry. But it was his life, it was his career, and it was his choice of what he wanted to do with it. Yeah. So I had to do it.
Yeah, and I think too, it was evident. And like I said, it was even evident for me, even from the time that he was that I knew him in middle school, that it was, like you said, in him. Like it wasn't going anywhere. Mm-mm. He could sit behind somebody's desk if he absolutely had to, but he was gonna be beaten on that desk. Like it wasn't going anywhere. No. So it wasn't just like he's doing it for a come up or he's doing it for a job. He was not about the name at all. No. He was doing it because God had put it in him, and he had to get it out. Yeah.
And then what's funny, because he was so challenging as a child. When he became Juice Wrld, it all made sense to me. I was like, okay, Lord, I get it. All the energy he had, it's just, It just all made sense. I'm like, okay. You know, so it was meant for him to do that.
That's really good. You speaking to me as a parent right now. We were just talking about our 6-year-old and his mouth, and I always tell I have a daughter too who's a lot, and I always say she gonna be running something someday. Yep. This is because the Lord has her. She bossing everybody here because she gonna be running something someday. So I appreciate that word.
Yeah, it's amazing that God puts it in us. Yeah. You know, and it's a matter of recognizing it, you know, and acting on it. But it's scary. You know, as a parent, we want to protect our children, you know. And
so what was it hard for you to like juggle then, like taking a step back, allowing him to kind of figure out that direction versus you like just trying to take control to perhaps save him for what perhaps you thought might not be good for him?
No, I stepped back.
Okay.
You know, I had to take my hands off and let him do it, you know, because I would not have, he wouldn't have been happy if I would have been involved. You know, I figured, you know, he was coming of age, he was 18 and he had to find his way. So I just had to let him and just be prayerful, you know, as he did. But
and so then, you know, all of his hard work turns into overnight success. And I guess when in my mind, that's another layer of faith, you know. And so what did that look like where it's like, okay, he said he was going to do something and now it's actually happening. That's another release.
Yeah, that was surreal the way it just happened. But I mean, he started in high school. So he was in band freshman and sophomore year and part of junior year. Then he decided to quit band. Well, you know, as parents, we want our children in band, we want them in this. And he was focused on his music at that point. But I had to pick my battles with Jarad because, you know, he would have told me he was going to band practice and he would have left and he would have been there when I was there to pick him up. Because it happened once. I'm like, okay. You had to pick your battles because at least I knew where he was.
It wasn't worth it.
No. Not at all. I had to pick my battles with him. So, but it was surreal and it was scary because I know, you know, I didn't know anything about the industry, you know, so I had to figure out what was going on and, you know, what he needed and make sure he was okay. And that part was scary. And I just prayed a lot, you know. Just stay prayerful and then made sure he had the right people around him. Like my nephew eventually went where he was to keep an eye on him. So, and then later on, maybe after a year or so in, I left my job to go, you know, to make sure, to get involved, to make sure he was okay, and, you know, be able to visit him more, just spend time with him more. So, just to have my presence there helped a lot.
I mean, you guys, like I said, have such a strong connection. So I'm sure that, you know, it was important to him. That you knew that he was okay and that you guys were close.
He never wanted me to leave. I went to see him. But can you stay another day? A lot of times I would end up extending my trip.
You know, most boys, they're mother boys. You know, I can never win with my kids. It's always mom, you know, and she always complains to me about, well, how come you don't ever go to dad for nothing? Because it's about mom. But with you guys having like such this special bond, did Jarad ever talk to you kind of about, you know, just the things that he was struggling with, like with you know, the depression and those type of things and the heavy weight he felt in terms of reaching his fans and being honest and open with them?
Not really. He spoke how he was feeling through his music. That was his way of communicating, you know, how he was feeling. We talked about it in relationship to drugs and him getting high, because I would just confront Jarad with stuff. I wouldn't ask him, I would tell him. And he couldn't lie to me. Like, no, you're doing this, you know, what are you doing and why? And so he would say, you know, it helps with my anxiety. And then you know, we had the whole conversation where you need to do it properly and, you know, that whole, but you know, he knew everything. You couldn't tell him anything. He was at that age. You couldn't tell him everything. I recommended that he speak with his psychologist because he had counseling throughout high school.
Mm-hmm.
And really because he had ADD, and it was just to balance him, just to, because we had a conversation about him controlling his impulsiveness. And so I said, you could do karate or you could do counseling, right? And we were living in Homewood at the time, so I found this place, and we were going to do a sample trial, So we pull up to the building, there's just big sign up that says karate for kids, and with a picture of a kid, and Jarad was about 16.
Okay.
He wasn't going.
He wasn't feeling it.
He's like, this ain't happening.
It's not for me.
So he ended up going to counseling. But I found a nice African-American guy that could relate to him. So he did that for throughout high school, I would say from junior, senior year. And even after he signed on with Interscope, I think he went like maybe once or so where he paid his own co-payment. He was so proud to pay his own co-payment. But so he understood, and I think that helped him communicate and be in touch with his feelings. I think that all helped, but he didn't really tell me, because he didn't want me to worry about him.
Yeah.
But I always would say, don't worry, pray, but he didn't want me to take that. He didn't want me to know that.
Yeah, and I think too, especially nowadays with students and kids who are experiencing things like ADD or ADHD, it's easy to go from that to the other.
We had that conversation here and I.
Okay.
One of the last conversations we had, we talked about the relationship between the medicine and the drugs.
Yes.
Because you're right. They're used to taking something to alter their normal.
Yep. Yes.
So, they're accustomed to taking pills.
Yes.
So we had that same conversation about, is there a link between it?
Yeah.
We were just wondering. And it's funny because it came up, and I had been thinking it, and he was thinking it. So we ended up talking about it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think that did make it easy for him to be able to.
And I think too, there's a mentality for kids who struggle with, ADD, ADHD, or anxiety, or any kind of mental, I don't want to say mental illness, but anything that kind of makes them feel other. There's kind of like a struggle to kind of control it. It's like I have to maintain it. And for me, I feel like that was part of Jarad's genius. It was almost like that's kind of who he was. And I remember even dealing with it in the classroom, but I remember coming up with different unique ways to do. He was, I'll still to this day say, he was one of my students who I would always let him face the window when I was teaching, because usually you want all that, but I knew Jarad was hearing everything I was saying. He just needed something to keep his keep him looking and keep his attention. And so I was able to kind of do that with him. But I think that I think it is easy because I think sometimes the kids feel like there's something that I have to do to get me in a state where I'm like everybody else,
right? And
then it's easy to transfer. And I think that's what happened with Jarad.
Yeah.
Did he kind of make that shift into more of not prescription, but doing it for kind of his own self-management? Did he make that shift like in high school, or do you think it came kind of after he started getting into the industry?
From what I understand from him, he was doing it in high school. When you get old, when the kids get older and they get to the confession stuff. Remember that time? When you're getting the real deal,
right? Exactly.
Really happened.
Yeah, they're too old to get in trouble for it. So
we can have those kind of conversations. What really happened,
right? And
so he actually started experimenting in high school.
Okay.
Yeah, which I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know about the whole pill thing. Okay. I would look for the basic, like weed, know, but as far as...
Right.
But I knew something was off. I was like, what's going on with you? Something was a little different. But, no, I had no idea.
Yeah. And do you feel like then when it branched and he kind of blew up and now he's in this industry, those safeguards were kind of gone?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he he spiraled out of control. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that one good thing though is that Jarad could never escape who he was. Right. So because he was so authentic, he told on himself in his music. Yeah. Yep. Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that was just his way of healing, though. That was just his way of getting it out.
Yeah.
To express, what was going on in his head.
Yeah.
And I couldn't understand really what he was talking about, but I found out later his fans understood. And something he was saying to them was helping them. Yeah. Like helping them with anxiety.
Right.
Yeah. All the outpouring with suicide. Yeah. So we just, you just never know how God would use somebody.
Right.
And he really touched a lot of people. I was just amazed.
Yeah.
But I think it was just being transparent about how he felt.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, I would say even like for me, like, I've struggled like with food addictions. You know what I'm saying? And using food to like cope with pain and hurt, and obviously like the loss of my mom, and we've lost some students being in ministry, and it's just hard being in church in general with all the politics and stuff. And so I went on this journey, and right now I'm down about 110 pounds. But my point is that I would always listen to Jarad's music in the gym. And that's because his music would speak to me, because I battle food addictions. Wow. You see what I'm saying?
Wow, yeah.
But you would never know that your son is speaking to a pastor, and every day at the gym I will listen to his music every single day. Wow. And but yeah, it's something too, for some reason in the Black community that we just don't ever talk about.
Right.
Yeah. We sweep these things under the rug, and we just pretend like it's just not there, but maybe we're all flawed.
I think,
you know what I'm saying? Like maybe we're all really just messed up, and we're just all saved by grace.
Grace of God.
You know?
Really, we are. And I think it's just a matter of allowing the Lord to heal you of those things. So that means you have to be honest with yourself on where you are.
Yeah.
And I think Jarad was very honest with himself on where he was.
Yeah.
And he knew he struggled.
Yeah.
And we prayed and, everything. He knew that, you know. So.
Yeah.
I mean, my opinion, I believe your son was the greatest rapper of his generation.
Wow.
My opinion.
He listens to a lot of rap too.
yeah. No, seriously.
Wow.
And I remember even sharing a sermon with our youth, and I based it off of Jarad.
Really?
And I titled it "Shoot for the Stars."
Wow.
Shoot for the stars. Go shoot for your dreams. And he accomplished his dreams. Not too many people could say that.
Oh yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
I remember when I found out that Juice Wrld and Jarad were one and the same, because I had no idea. Our kids were listening to Lucid Dream. They were watching the video, and they showed me this video, and I said, I know. First, I said, I know that smile. I mean,
smile.
That is his calling card. Yep. And I said, that's my Jarad. That's not Juice Wrld. That's my. And I'm like, what? And they're like, no, Mom, that's Juice Wrld. I said, no, that is Jarad. And then I remember sending you an email, and I just was like, we're so proud of him. Let him know we're praying for him. And
he was so happy to hear that too.
Oh.
Yeah, I think I showed him the email.
Yeah.
He loved that.
Oh, yeah. I just wanted him to know that there's still somebody praying for him.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And that no matter where he was and how big things gotten or how much he might have fallen, that somebody always had his back in prayer. He was always covered.
What's interesting with Jarad led people to Jesus as Juice Wrld.
I love it.
He would have people praying.
Yeah.
So he still promoted Jesus. He still lifted up Jesus, in spite of all of that.
His testimony was able to reach the masses, and that's what the Lord had planned for him.
Yep.
And
all races.
Yeah.
All races.
Yep.
Yeah.
He
all
touched
different
them
kinds
all.
of kids.
Yep. He touched them all over the world
Yeah.
too. Yeah. It's just amazing. The thing is just not to limit God. We always have a vision of how it should look.
Yeah.
You know, how does deliverance look?
Yeah.
You know, how should that look?
Yeah.
Well, many people got delivered from the words that came from Jarad.
That's
you know,
so true.
Didn't have the regular look.
Yeah.
You know, it was a different look.
Yeah.
But yet, you know, his impact.
Yeah.
You know, and those who got set free from his words.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And we could like you said, we limit what God can do, and we think inside this box, or we think in a traditional way of thinking, and his plan and his ways are higher and greater. And he put people in his path for that deliverance, for that particular time and season.
Yeah. And it's just so many that got set free.
Yeah.
You know, but it's just amazing what God could do if we just let him.
Yeah. We get out the way.
Yeah. And get rid of the preconceived notions on how we think it should look.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Or if somebody's saved.
Yeah.
You know, are they really saved? Or, you know.
Yeah. Well, how are we to judge that? You know what I mean? Because each day is a faith walk for all of us. And we, you know, we walk by sight, right? We kind of just are only able to see with our own fleshly eyes, but God knows the heart, and He can reach those in different ways.
Oh yeah. And speaking to a language that they understand, you know, that's not condemning, and I think that's the whole thing. Because in spite of everything, I never condemned or judged Jarad.
Yeah,
I corrected him. You know,
there's a difference there.
Do that, you know. I never wanted him to feel bad about his mistakes. You know, just get over it. You know, keep it moving, and you know, do better. Yeah. So that was always the angle I came from.
And that gives people freedom to seek help. Yeah.
It does.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's funny you said that, because our son has been dealing with anxiety as of late. And just reading up on some of the things that you've been through, you know, I was thinking back on that even in my communication with my son. And because you were talking about how it's important to give them a safe place to be honest and to have dialogue and not make them feel like they're any lesser than.
Yeah.
You know, so in so many words, you know, I just told him, like, look, man, you know, I understand you have anxiety. Guess what? Your father has anxiety. Every time I get ready to preach, I have anxiety. Every time I get ready to do something, I have anxiety, you know. So you're not the only one going through it, but I'm proud of you for just being open and honest and actually vulnerable enough to share that with me, you know. And so I just think that you're breaking some walls down.
Yeah. Especially in the African American community.
Oh yeah,
we need it.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're for too long we have to put on a tough exterior to you know what I mean, to be able to withstand everything that we have to withstand. But at some point we have to be there to uplift each other and be in our vulnerability.
Yes, and realize it's okay not to be okay. Yeah. You know, and then that way at least you're honest about it and you're open, you're in touch with yourself. Yeah. And then you could deal with it. Yeah. But you can't, you know, unless you, I'm quoting Dr. Phil.
Yeah.
You know,
go for it.
Like he said, you cannot change what you don't acknowledge.
Yes.
So, you know, you have to acknowledge it in order to really be able to make some changes.
Yeah.
You know, there are words for, like, when somebody loses their spouse, you know, they call them a widow. There's also words for when a child loses their parents. They would call them a orphan. But there are no words for when a parent loses a child. How are you doing, like, you know?
It's a daily walk.
Yeah.
You know, some days I'm fine. You know, some days I'm laughing because I'm thinking of crazy stuff. Yeah. You know, that he's done. And some days I'm sad. But the sad days are kind of becoming fewer and fewer, you know, as I look back. Yeah. But it's a challenge. You know, I have to be honest about it. I can't say, oh, I'm just wonderful. No. It's a challenge, and it's just one of those things that has to heal in time. You know, and so I use my work with the foundation as a point of healing for me, helping other people. You know, it helps me to be a blessing to other people. But it's a daily walk.
Can you talk a little bit about the foundation and how you just Well, first of all, how in the midst of your grief you were able to say, I'm gonna do this. This is something I want to do, and what you do and where it's birthed from.
So it started with the outpouring that I received about, how he's helped people. People were just sitting, just the outpouring was just overwhelming. How he helped me with this. And I'm like, wait a minute, I have to do something.
Yeah.
I have to keep it going.
Yeah.
So it was just really out of obligation for him to finish the work he started.
Wow.
I think that's my part. My part is to do this part.
Yeah.
And just to let people know it's hope. You're not alone. And doing that, it was healing.
Yeah.
It makes me feel better to be a blessing to other people. So, and then, excuse me, I just lost.
That's okay. No, so it's called Live Free.
Live Free 999.
Yeah.
And so the name came from Jarad and I had gone to San Diego. We would go every year for spring break from sophomore year through senior year in high school.
Oh, wow.
Because my sister lives she lived in the San Diego area. So we would go visit her and hang out. And so Jarad was artsy.
Yeah.
And he got to a point where I would buy him his back to school clothes. He wanted to go thrift shopping. That worked for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
save a couple coins.
Yeah. So he would take clothes and then he would alter them.
Okay, yeah.
So he had this jean jacket that he painted, and on the back he wrote the words "Live Free."
Wow.
And so when I was looking through pictures from that trip, I saw a picture of him, and we were on one of those dinner cruises, one of those day cruises or whatever, and he was looking out at the water, and he told me to take the picture. So he posed for the picture. He's like, Mom, take this picture. And so I took the picture, and it's the picture of him facing the water and with the jean jacket, and on the back it says "Live Free."
Wow.
And so then Jarad came up with 999 because that was Juice Wrld's thing.
Yeah.
999, the opposite of 666. Turn all the hell around.
Yeah.
So that's how he came up with that.
Wow.
So I took his Jarad came up with the title.
Yeah.
I took his words and I used it for that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what is Live Free? What is its mission? What is the goal with the foundation?
So our goal is to normalize the conversation about mental health. We want it to be a common thing to just talk about it, where it's not taboo or it's not hidden. Something we have to keep among ourselves. It's just a platform where we're able to address mental health. Yeah. So we have a text crisis line on there where people could text 24/7 confidential help. And also to provide other avenues for students. So it's like two parts, the mental health part, and then supporting programs that provide alternatives for children. So they don't get caught up with the drugs. Sure. They can get interest, things like that. So that's our goal. And it's just to keep growing, to keep touching more people, as many as we can, to spread the word that it's okay not to be okay. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Let's talk about it.
Well, I've already received such a huge blessing from the organization with our school and creating a whole music program for our students in Jarad's memory. I have to say, for me, as much as I appreciate the instruments and the music classes, for me, the best part is being able to talk to the kids about Jarad.
Oh.
And to be able to just share with them how much of a joy he was, and to share with them that because of the seeds that were planted in him, because of all of what you did in him, they're able to be blessed and now hopefully take it and it can again continue to spread.
And see, that's what it's about. It's just about being a blessing to others and then just helping them be whole. As much as we can.
For sure. And I'm grateful that it's been a good source of healing for you and help. I know it's a day by day thing. How do you deal with too, because he's still everywhere. My husband, I know sometimes it's hard for me. I'm driving in the car.
He's on sports channels.
Oh my God.
The NFL plays his music during their commercials.
Yeah, and I'll hear a song, and sometimes I'm like, okay, and then other times I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna take a minute. How was that for you?
Sometimes I say, wow, Lord, you gave him me. You gave me him, and you trusted me to put the things in him to be who he was. So sometimes I'm just like really honored and overwhelmed at the fact that this is my child. It's still overwhelming to me when I'm turn on TV and like, this is Jarad.
He's still got music coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and he loved music.
Yeah.
He loved making music. He recorded music every day.
Yeah.
That was his outlet. That was how he got it all out. But every day he had a studio in the house.
Yeah.
Every day he recorded music. When they traveled, he recorded music.
Yeah.
That was his thing.
Yeah. Well, we just thank you so much for taking time with us today. I just have to say, when we were able to kind of reconnect, and like I said, I put the connection together of Jarad and Juice Wrld. But then, later having to go to his funeral, I just want to say we left there saying you honored him and you kept it about you and your family and him. And it was a heartbreaking moment, but it was a heartwarming moment because it was about who Jarad was.
Yep.
And I know that, walking this out, it's unimaginable, but I think that so many people are still, the blessing of who he was has ripple effects, and it's going to continue to reverberate.
Oh, yeah. I agree.
Yeah. That's because of your strength and your faith, and it's just evident. So I just thank you so much.
Grace of God.
Yeah.
Really, it is by the grace of God. Because you look back at stuff and you say, how did I get through it?
Yeah.
But it's the grace of God that just, that keeps me.
Yeah.
And just when you think you're tired, he renews you, or you'll get a word that's just from nowhere, something just to encourage you.
Yeah.
But one thing I say, and one thing I know, God is faithful.
That's it.
And so I have to stay on that. I don't have the answers, but I know I prayed for the Lord to protect him.
Yeah.
And I know maybe that was his way.
Yeah.
Of doing it.
Yeah.
To protect him from himself.
Yeah. His ways are sovereign.
Yeah.
And Jarad, I think he, in my opinion, lived how he was meant to. Never doubting himself.
Never.
Always sure of himself. Always wanting to bless other people. And just being a light.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And he blessed me so much. He just did so many nice things for me.
Yeah.
Just because, like, when we were in England for that Nicki Minaj tour he was on, he treated me shopping to like a shopping spree.
Oh, wow.
Where it was like a pretty woman experience.
Wow.
Where I'm walking through the store, and I had my big sister with me because I took her with me, and we're walking through the store. I went this, and there's people running behind me. He did that for me. He just did all kinds of just nice stuff for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you guys are one and the same.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm just blessed by having been able to see your relationship, and me having 2 sons. I just pray that I can embody some of that and have that kind of relationship with them.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Well, we want to thank you once again for meeting with us, and we want to thank you all for joining us on our first podcast. If there's anybody out there and you're struggling with depression or anxiety or addictions, we don't want you to feel like you're alone. Please visit Live Free 999. There's always hope. There's always somebody out there that you can reach out to and talk to. You're not alone. You are loved. You are special. There's a plan and there's a purpose for your life. All right? Thank you for tuning in. Well, hey everybody, we want to once again thank you guys for just tuning in. My name is Pastor Keith.
I'm Linnea.
Yep. We just want to thank you guys for joining us for Real Speaks to Real. We're actually going to release a new podcast starting off once every single month. All right. Once again, our goal is to hit some hard point issues, real life issues that people are dealing with every single day, and hit on some topics that no one wants to really discuss, and things that we normally just sweep under the rug. We don't want to deal with surface stuff. We want to deal with some real issues. All right. So once again, we want to thank you guys, and we're looking forward to you guys tuning in for the next drop of the podcast. Like I said, we'll do a new one once every single month. All right.